So in this video, I'm going to be running through the routine that I use to track my money, and it is a pretty comprehensive review of my entire financial life. So I will be sharing pretty much every detail of my finances, starting off with my spending, moving on to income, and finishing with calculating my updated net worth. I'll share the tools that I use, how I actually implement the system to save me money, and if you're just nosy, you'll obviously get a pretty good insight into what my finances look like as a junior corporate lawyer living in London. So this is something I do once a year, every year, usually in May after the end of the financial year, which is in April here in the UK. I sit down, put on a chill playlist, get out my magical pink notebook and my laptop, and work through, first of all, my spending. Like literally all of my spending. So I'm gonna go and do this right now, and I'm gonna walk you through how I get all of my bank transactions across different bank accounts into one place, how I then categorize those bank transactions to allow me finally to see exactly what I've spent my money on, exactly how much I've spent in different areas of my life, and to inform decisions for the coming year on where I could make cuts or where perhaps I could actually spend more money in areas that really matter to me. And when I am done, I will come back up here and explain what I've found out, basically. Okay, so I'm at my desk and I am ready to start categorizing all of my different spending. So the first thing I need to do is pull in the transaction data from each of the different banks that I use. I have 4 bank accounts, and I've made other videos on how I manage my money, but the key thing for me is I have one account into which my salary comes every month, and I then distribute that to 3 different accounts. The first one is my needs account, so that is the account that I use for paying my mortgage, bills. The second account is my wants account, and that is the account that I use for day-to-day spending on stuff like taking Beth out on a date or Netflix subscriptions. And then the third account is a joint account that I keep with Beth, and we use that basically as like a holiday fund for the 2 of us to put money into for stuff that we're going to do together. So the first thing I obviously need to do is get in the data from each of the different banking apps that I use. And this is the most painful part of the process, and this is why I only do this once a year, because it does take a bit of time. The key tip I have here really is, if at all possible, get CSV files, because if you're exporting PDF statements and then having to try and copy and paste those into an Excel spreadsheet, it's going to take hours. Alrighty, so first step is obviously to compile all these transactions into one Excel spreadsheet. So I am copying and pasting in the 6 different sheets I have from my 3 different banks out of which I spend money. And then once I've done that, the next step is to turn the compiled data, which I haven't yet organized, into a table using the Excel table function. The next thing I'm doing here is just to make sure that each of the different bank accounts I've imported data from are in the same format. So for example, with Lloyd's, I got all of the transactions where I've spent money in one column and all of my income in another. I only copied the column where I've spent money because I only care about spending, but those numbers are positive, whereas on my other bank accounts, they are negative. So I need to make sure all of the numbers are negative from the Lloyd's account in order to make the consolidated spreadsheet work. Okay, now the next thing I'm gonna do is get rid of all of the money that I received into these accounts. So I'm gonna delete all transactions under £1 because they're gonna make basically no difference to the overall numbers, and it's just not worth my time to go through and categorize all of those. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm then gonna move on to categorizing these transactions. If you go into the transaction description column, which is generally who you paid, you can pretty quickly sort by that column, and then you'll be able to see, for example, I have a whole bunch of transactions to Aldi here. And so I can very quickly say, okay, all of those can be categorized as essential food, and drag that down for the whole bunch of transactions with Aldi, obviously the best supermarket in the UK. Okay, so now I've finished categorizing, and I'll put along the bottom of the screen here all of the different categories that I have, and I'd recommend you copy something like this, although obviously make it work for you. The next step is to then sort by category and to sum the amounts that come out of each of those categories so that you can figure out basically how you're spending your money over the course of the year. To do this, we're going to use an Excel function called SUMIF. So we are going to type SUMIF, then select the range, which is the range of values, so basically the category column. Then you go comma, and then the criterion we're going to use is double inverted commas, bank fees double inverted commas, comma, and then the value we're going to use, which is this column here. And hopefully that then sums where this column is bank fees, it sums the amount in this column. And we're simply going to do this for each of the different categories we have in our table. So I will copy that into there. Then once I've done that, I'm now going to do the same, but instead of bank fees, I'll use car. And I'll pop down in the description this formula so you can easily copy and paste it into the Excel when you are doing the same. Once I've done that, I'll then format the figure cells so that those are nicely pound signed. If I turn this now into a table, it therefore means that I can easily see the categories that I have been spending money on. And then what I can do is I can use this auto sum feature here. So if I just click on this auto sum, that will calculate the sum of the rows in my table, and I can put total, and that gives me my rough total spending for the year. What is really helpful then, I think, is to sort by largest to smallest so you can see exactly what you're spending your money on. And you can look at each of these items and decide whether there are things you should be cutting out of your life in order to reduce your spending, or whether actually you think, you know what, that's an area that's really important to me. For example, holidays for me in the past, I've looked at and said, actually, you know what, I could probably spend more of my income on that because it's something that's really important to me. It allows you to make informed decisions about how you're spending your money. So yeah, I'm gonna head back upstairs and run you through the findings, I guess, from this, just a couple of pointers that I've taken from doing this exercise, and then gonna go into calculating net worth. Okay, so clearly it's pretty helpful to just have an idea of how much money you spent in the last year. Most people do not know that number, and so comparing that to your income is just a helpful place to start in terms of your overall financial health. But for me, there are really two key points to doing this exercise. The first is to calculate your ratio of needs to wants to future investments. And if you follow the common guidance, you'll have heard people probably talk about the 50-30-20 rule. And I think this is helpful. I personally would like to have the 20 a bit higher because I have a relatively high salary and obviously have side income as well. That will depend on your situation, but I think aiming for around 50% of your income going on needs and basing your rent or where you choose to buy and your mortgage on wanting to spend around 50% of your income on those things, then actually looking at the rest of your spending and saying, maybe if I want to save a bit more, I could cut back on some of my want spending. It's just a helpful framework, but kind of come up with your own percentages that you think work for you. This was my ratio, which to be honest, I'm pretty happy with. And then the second purpose is just to reduce spending. Now, spending on things you care about, want to buy, etc. is good. You should not cut that back. The point of this exercise is really to see, actually, this is all of the money I spent. These are the one-off purchases that maybe I didn't need. Maybe I didn't need that 500 quid PS5 that I played twice. Or maybe I looked, for example, concretely at my phone bill, which has gone up from £56 a month to around £90 a month. I know that my phone contract is coming up for renewal. I also had like an EU roaming pass that I hadn't removed, so that was costing me an extra £15 a month. I hadn't even realised. So I instantly went in, removed that £15 roaming pass, and I can put it back on whenever I go to Europe. And I've added to my calendar the date on which my phone contract is due to renew, and I'm going straight to SIM only until I decide on maybe wanting to upgrade or move to another contract. And I think when you're doing this, don't necessarily take all of your needs as like, I have to spend this amount of money. The needs are obviously there because they're things that you need. But for example, supermarket shop is a need, but it could be cheaper if you shopped elsewhere. For example, we switched from Sainsbury's to Aldi because it saves us like hundreds of pounds a month. Similarly with energy bills, obviously you need gas, water, electric, but you should look online to see if you could switch and save. I actually just realized based on this exercise that I'm paying way too much for my gas and electricity. And so now we'll be looking to switch as soon as I can. And there is a third bonus benefit to doing this, I think, which is that you actually get to see exactly how much you're putting away for your future, whether that's savings or investments every month. So for me, for example, I get to see that amount of money, which is like £1,600, whatever the max is that I can put in each month, transfer into my stocks and shares ISA, which is with InvestEngine, and they are today's sponsor. Now, I've used a bunch of different investing platforms, but the thing I absolutely love about InvestEngine is how easy it makes it to automate your investments. Previously, I was having to like transfer money, I sometimes forgot, etc. InvestEngine does it all for me. It takes money out of my bank account, automatically transfers it into my InvestEngine account, and automatically then distributes my money into different funds based on the allocations I've set within the app. Now, one of the most important things to look at when you're considering any investing platform is the fee structure, and InvestEngine is free to sign up, free to use. You can open an ISA in the UK, again, completely free. You can build your own portfolio, again, completely commission free, or you can leave it to their experts for a relatively low fee of 0.25% at the time of making this video. Overall, very easy sign up process. Getting started is easy, intuitive, and actually connecting your bank account, getting automatic deposits, etc. really straightforward. Plus, once you're set up, they have fractional investing, meaning that you can put in as little as £1 into an ETF. The dashboard, analytics, insights you get from the app are all really easy to follow and use. So yeah, overall, I'm a big InvestEngine fan. I use it for my own ISA and also for my business investments. Building investing into your overall financial routine is a huge step towards building wealth over the long term. So yeah, do check out InvestEngine. Okay, so once you've looked at your spending, the next thing to look at is your income. And my income currently is just over £125,000 a year. But I think there are really two things to think about here. Number one is, could I increase my income, whether that's by negotiating an increased salary with your employer because you think you're performing well and there's scope in your industry to do that, or two, could you move jobs and earn more elsewhere? If you're considering the latter, what is the cost of an increased salary elsewhere? Would it mean less free time? Would it mean greater commitments, greater responsibility, greater stress? And I think then weigh up that decision. My strong general advice on this would be that if you've been in a job for a year or more, it is well worth contacting recruiters in your industry just to find out what the options are out there. Are there places that are paying more for your role? Could you increase your salary by moving? The cost of inaction here, by not having any idea what is out there, is significant because actually, even if you have no interest in moving and really like where you are, if the same role is being paid more highly elsewhere, it may be that there's scope for you to negotiate. And second, I think it's worth thinking about other possible sources of income. Could you start a side hustle? Obviously, I have this YouTube channel, but even if you don't want to go down that avenue, is there a way you could, for instance, deploy cash that you currently have in a bank account, maybe to a more effective savings account where you get a higher rate of interest? Could you buy some bonds which have an even higher rate of interest? Could you buy some shares which have a high dividend yield because you want to get income off them rather than just growth in the value of the shares? Or could you, for example, take some of the equity you have in your current house and buy a second property to rent out to bring in income? Obviously, you have to do the maths on these, but I think just really worth being alive to these possibilities, exploring the opportunities and making decisions actively about whether or not they're good ideas. For example, I have been thinking about buying property for ages. I continue to think it is not a good idea in my current situation, but I stay open to it. I keep considering it. I keep staying informed by listening to podcasts, etc. about it. So I think just stay informed, keep thinking about whether there are ways you could create a second or third stream of income. Okay, and on to the final part of my system, which is to calculate your net worth. It's kind of the juicy bit, I guess. It is, I think, very helpful to see how this is changing over time. It is something I have been doing since I was about 15 years old, which you will know if you watched my last net worth video. And if you haven't, go watch that straight after this. Seeing how your net worth is changing over time is incredibly important. You need to see if it's going in the right direction. And obviously, you can see based on year changes, kind of where you're projected to be over the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And that really helps with financial planning and decision making. So yeah, I'm going to go now and go and calculate my net worth. And again, I will bring you along for the process. This is what my special pink book is for. I probably do this every maybe 3 to 6 months. So this is it, my magical pink notebook. And you will see, if I show you this, that all the way back in 2012, I started this and had a net worth of £681. And since then, I have done this, you'll kind of see, like, over the course of a number of years, quite a few times, and gradually my net worth has increased, and I've kind of worked my way up to where I am now, and I am now currently going to work through my net worth in this pink book. So I'm going to go through each of my bank accounts, all of the assets that I have, work out what assets I have, then take away my liabilities and come up with a net worth figure, which then can inform the way I'm thinking about my finances and what I'm doing. For example, should I be investing more? Should I be looking at the property market? Should I be diversifying my investments? It just allows you to have a really solid understanding of where your finances are. Okay, so all done, and I'm not going to tell you exactly where I keep my money because I don't feel comfortable telling people exactly how much money I have in different asset classes precisely. But what I will say is that I last did this on the 11th of February this year, and it's now June of this year. And in that period, I've managed to increase my net worth by around £50,000. Now that is largely due to the fact that I am massively overpaying into my pension, which means that I do that before tax, and I have increased my pension pot by around £30,000 during that period because we get paid our bonuses, and so I put a significant portion of that into my pension as well. I then have pretty much all of my investments made through apps in ISAs or through my pension, and we've seen significant stock market growth over the last 4 months, so the value of those assets has just gone up naturally as the markets have gone up. Generally, I invest basically in the S&P 500 and the FTSE All-World indices with a tiny bit of gold as well. Looking down the list, I then also had pretty good revenue months in March and April, less so in May and June for my YouTube channel, so I've had around a £10,000 bump over the course of the last 4 months in YouTube income, which again has increased my net worth, and my student loan has also come down by around £8,000 due to me slightly overpaying that at the moment because I really would like to get rid of it, if at all possible, this financial year. So all of that means that my net worth around a year ago in August 2023 was around £150,000. Now in June 2024, it is £263,000. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with that growth, and I'm hoping to be able to continue to grow this number upwards and start to make more aggressive investments, possibly into, for example, buying a property that maybe I could do up with Beth and make some money through that as well, considering different investment options. But yeah, very, very happy with the direction of travel. So yeah, that was all of my spending, my income, and my net worth. And yeah, I really recommend that you go now and apply this system. It probably takes 2 or 3 hours maximum to do the whole thing. It really gives you an amazing insight into your financial health. But crucially, it will also allow you to take steps to improve your spending, reduce unnecessary spending into this year, and fundamentally put yourself in a healthier financial position next year when you repeat the exercise. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember, you can download InvestEngine and start investing using InvestEngine completely free now. So yeah, do go and get that. I honestly cannot recommend it enough. And I really look forward to speaking again very, very soon.